Trapped in an abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, you must traverse through the dark halls and rooms of this murky establishment and uncover the tragedies here, as well as your own memories as you try to find your way out. Welcome to A Shadow Over Freddy's by Phisnom. You wake up in a small dark room, laying down on a cold checkered floor with your back against a wall, feeling like hell. Your mouth tastes like copper and there's nothing to hear but the low buzz of a metal fan. Gradually, your eyes begin to open, muscles trembling as they try to stretch and contract. Your memory is foggy and your head throbs, failing to recall any information that might shed light on your current situation. A lifeless husk of a building reveals itself to you through the cone of the flashlight, dusts and cobwebs lining every corner, cups and black stains covering the floor, drips of water seeping through the rotten wooden ceiling. The layout is familiar to you, but the walls aren't nearly as inviting or friendly. Your chest feels heavy with dread. The first coherent thoughts that enter your head urge you to leave as soon as possible. Leave immediately, before the shadows that have devoured this abandoned building come to consume you as well. Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It's great to have you back home. You wake up inside the familiar security office in the FNAF 1 establishment and are given a series of objectives you must complete before 6 AM or else you'll be attacked by the shadows that lurk around. On your first night, you must locate the exit, and while you might think it's easy to navigate the layout of the FNAF 1 restaurant, it's very easy to get lost in the dark. This is honestly one of the creepiest fan games I've played, as you're forced to wander through the darkness with the possibility of encountering the dangerous shadows lurking around. The visuals and sounds around you make it clear this is no longer a cherished location, and yet you're stuck here trying to get out. You find the exit only to find it boarded up, with the tune of a music box playing as your vision turns to static. As you turn around, you see a shadowy figure with two white eyes. The figure pulls you to safety, standing before you with its eyes locked on your pale face. It looks like he wants to help you recover your lost memories. The figure then offers you a story. Whether you choose to listen is your choice. If you want to go for the game's good ending, you must listen to their stories. The first story was about a little kid who liked to play with his toys by his lonesome. He lived with his family in a small peaceful house outside of town surrounded by forestry. The home's backyard was his personal stage, where he played with his figurines of various shapes and sizes, making plays which were acted out for his enjoyment alone. Although he was alone, he was content in living out his youth playing with the plastic friends his parents had gifted him with. They were a small mannequin, a stuffed teddy bear, a porcelain dress-up doll, and a toy robot. But one day, the family's pet dog stole one of the toys during his playtime. Into the woods, he excitedly ran away with the toy robot, prompting the kid to chase after him to reclaim his friend. Annoyed by the dog's playful attitude, the kid caught up. Grabbing the toy from the thief's mouth, he began to pull. Oh, to be young and carefree. A kid and his dog playing tug-of-war in the back garden of their house with no one to interrupt them. Seems like a wonderful memory, doesn't it? The dog, excited to finally receive the attention it craved from the young master of the house, refused to lose this game they found themselves playing. The toy robot was almost free from the dog's mouth when... Relieved to have gotten his friend back, the kid wiped off the pool of drool off the toy robot with the bottom of his shirt. He walked back home, leaving the animal twitching helplessly on the grass, with barely enough room left in its swollen neck to let out a pitiful, dry howl. The kid, arriving back from out the trees, positioned the toy robot back to where it was on his makeshift stage and continued playing. Later that afternoon, the parents found the body of the dog. They buried it where it stood. On your next night, you're warned that the shadows have become increasingly aggressive as the nights go on, and a new presence has now appeared. It hides in rooms waiting for you to pass by, so be wary of where you're going. You can hold a right-click mouse button to ensure that the area in front of you is clear of any hidden shadows. Next, you must follow the music. Once you reach the room where the music's playing, you'll hear laughter as the presence leaves and starts playing music elsewhere. After a couple more times, you're led to the Parsons service room, where the static and music tune returns. You are pulled back again to safety as the sounds of the untuned music box wind down. The shadow offers another story as a reward for completing your task. This story I tell to you is a true story that I pray you will never forget. There once was a boy who laid awake at night during a harsh downpour. Beneath the covers of his bed, he closed his eyes and tried to ignore the storm just outside his room. Enveloped in darkness, a sensation of creeping discomfort kept him from falling asleep. The roars of the storm were nothing compared to the restlessness that the shadows cast from the window gave him. He felt eyes watching him from afar. The boy opened his eyes and looked toward the window, but nothing was there. He tried to go back to sleep. He opened his eyes again, and out of the corner of his eye, he spotted it. The hollow white eyes of a living shadow. It appeared just as quickly as it went away. His uneasiness pushed to the side by growing curiosity, the boy got up from his bed and approached the window. From out the glass he could see it, the silhouette of an animal, darker than the night around it and void of color even when light struck its frame. Running off into the trees with a familiar object stuck in its mouth. His favorite toy, stolen again, being carried towards the forest. The boy couldn't help but follow along the shadow's path. The night air was freezing, brazen winds carrying countless droplets that hit the skin like marbles, their impact deafening any other sound other than the imposing thunder. Call it premonition, but he knew where the shadow had gone to. That place at the edge of the forest where he had last left the family dog. He was sure he would find it. Standing in front of the grave once more, the eyes from the shadow had gone away. In its stead, the twice stolen toy robot now lay on top of the muddy mount. But this time, it was moving. Its tiny plastic arms flailing violently from side to side, its head rotating in place. The movements were sudden but clear. Unprompted by any outside influence, a spark of life was trapped inside of this tiny vessel. Fascinated by such discovery, he picked up the toy from the ground and held it tightly with both of his hands to prevent it from escaping his grasp. Smiling from ear to ear, the boy headed back home. On the third night, your objective is to find the kitchen, and now you must remain constantly on the move. If you stay in one area for too long, the shadows will make their way to you and lurk around you. If it has moved to the same area as you, you must look around and frighten it off with the flashlight before leaving the area. On top of all that, a new presence once again has appeared, and while it may move more slowly than the others, it is much harder to detect. Before you can enter the kitchen, however, you must first look for the key that'll grant you access. At this point for me, I was terrified. It was already worrisome when moving from room to room, worried that I might have missed some unseen threat, but now I had to pick up the pace a bit to prevent anything from trying to sneak up on me. Now, I'm not entirely sure if the key to the kitchen is in the same location for all players, but I found it in the break room hanging on a key rack, and then headed quickly to the kitchen. Once you reach the kitchen, you are pulled back to safety once again by the figure. This third story is a true story that I tell to you. I hope you're taking notes for the quiz at the end. Growing into adolescence, he had isolated himself from his family, focusing instead on his passion of the unknown, the spiritual, the place of mystery he had come to know years ago. In a box under his bed, he hid his secret away from all others, his living plastic friend, still thrashing and writhing inside. Every night, he observed his movements intently. The young man spent entire days away from home, reading and studying about spirits and vessels. His interest turned into obsession, and his need to understand grew. Alas, it was all for naught, as no book had the key to the answers he'd been seeking. All he found were vague rumors and legends with no instructions or explanations. To continue down the rabbit hole, he knew what had to be done. Since he was a kid, the young man never saw his dad as anything more than an obstacle. He was a moody, aggressive, old alcoholic who only talked to his son when he needed something to shout at. Having driven everyone that loved him away, the drunkard was worth less than nothing in the eyes of the boy. Thus, he was the perfect candidate. One day when coming home, seeing the old man sprawled out onto the kitchen table with a bottle on hand, he decided to show dear old daddy a new way of life. Holding a small felt doll in his left hand, the teen made his way to the house's garage. After a few hours, the deed was done and the plan in action. The boy watched his oblivious father drive away in his car, unaware of the tampering that had been done to the vehicle. Sitting on his bed, the young man took his dear pet out of the box and began to press harshly on its square plastic head. As it trembled in pain, he waited on the outcome of his small experiment. Oh, the humanity. After the car accident, he recovered the doll that had been planted below the seat and returned to his home. Placing it on his desk, he watched it closely for that same spark that remained inside his robotic friend. But much to his frustration, no movement came from the doll. Nothing. The vessel he had prepared for his father was empty, devoid of even a single remnant of life. Furious by his failure, he ripped the felt doll and threw it aside. What a waste. From then on, he was free of the shackles of his drunken caretaker, but without the trophy he had planned to take from his monstrous act of sabotage. Unflinching in his resolve and with no guilt in his empty heart, he contemplated on what to do next. I was kidding when I said there had to be a quiz, by the way. Not that it matters, or that you deserve it. 2 nights left, and a new presence has appeared, sleeping inside Pirate's Cove. You must check the curtains frequently to prevent its escape, or else it'll chase you down. On this night, your objective is quite simple. Collect 5 pieces of a Freddy plushie around the restaurant, which proved to be quite stressful. While doing this, I accidentally picked up a random Foxy plushie and mistook this as part of the main objective. In reality, you need to collect 5 plushies throughout the 5 nights as a condition of reaching the game's good ending, which I wasn't aware of at the time. After you collect the 5 Freddy pieces, you are pulled back to safety once again. The Shadow then offers you one last story. There once was a sick, twisted monster who stalked its victims from the shadows. Its heart far gone from its body, this putrid, parasitic individual lived for the hunt, to capture and corrupt the weak, all for the sake of satisfying its disgusting pleasures. Tonight was no different. Amidst the rain, this vile vampire society spotted a young girl left outside the entrance of a family restaurant. She looked in from a window as other kids inside had fun and celebrated without her. The monster approached the girl from behind, its body trembling in anticipation to savor the perfect opportunity that had been laid out in front of it. Maybe, if some humanity was still lingering inside, if some shred of dignity had remained in its hollow heart, it would have felt pity for her. Maybe it could have sympathized with her situation. It stood still, inches away from her, its hand reaching out for her back, the sounds of its breathing masked by the downpour surrounding them. The child felt a chill down her spine. She saw its eyes looking at her in the reflection of the glass. She slowly turned around to face the figure towering over her. You rotten, ignorant, heartless creature. You left that innocent little girl in the alley to die a cold, lonesome death. Your hands were tinted red with her blood, colorless in your empty eyes, and you felt nothing but satisfaction from taking her life. And for what? You don't remember? We all know that's not true. These meetings have been merely a formality. If it were up to me, I would have left you alone to be torn apart by your captors, limb from limb. Just like you tore the life away from her that night, tossing her into the trash after capturing the fragments of her essence. But now it's time for you to feel her pain, to feel the pain that all your victims suffered. Rot in hell, William Afton, alongside the shadows of your past. It's no surprise that we were William all along. These shadows have sought vengeance for what we've done to them, and they finally have their chance. What's curious though is that the puppet saves us and gives us our life story in pieces night after night to see if somehow we'd claim any form of remorse for the vile acts that we've subjected our victims to. In the case of the bad ending, however, we feel nothing. And now, all we can do is run. Running to the safe room, we assemble the plushie from the previous night, only to be ensnared in the spring-lock suit we used to terrorize our victims, as the puppet visits us one last time. You were once a man called William Afton. In life, you chose to waste time chasing shadows, turning a blind eye at the suffering of others. Leeching off the remnant of life that was robbed from your victims, you fought your fated death until your last rotten breath. But after decades of running away from retribution, You perished, trapped by your own machinations. Your body turned to ash, crushed inside one large metallic coffin. Your soul, now naked and vulnerable, was dragged down into the darkest depths of the earth and taken by the forces that would decide your fate. And their judgment was clear. This place was born out of their judgment, this colorless replica, a reflection of where your life should have first ended, populated by the shadows of your past. This is your punishment, an endless night trapped within the abandoned confines of the dream you turned into a nightmare, inside the place of joy you poisoned with your selfish desires. Congratulations, it's your own personal hell. You truly deserve it. My job here is finished. I'm through trying to find humanity in you. Your chances of redemption are long gone and you have no one to blame but yourself. Over the course of these 5 nights, you have failed to show regret for your actions nor care about anything other than your escape from this prison. You did this to yourself, and as such, I leave you to your fate. This is the end, William. Good riddance. Despite the fact that I missed 3 of the 5 plushies required for the good ending, this bad ending is oddly fitting for William given what he's done. However, if you actually get all of the plushies before night 5, instead of running, your objective is to escape. This time, in the safe room, when you pick up the Fredbear plushie that you assembled, the puppet saves you once again, instead of leaving you to be ensnared in the spring-lock suit. You then get the ending screen with all 5 plushies sitting together in full color. You went out of your way to get the plushies, each representing the victims you've left in your wake, and I suppose this is your way of showing some sort of remorse or guilt for what you've done to the shadows that have relented after you for the past 5 nights. Also, if you manage to get the good ending for this game, you unlock Custom Night. Now, while Custom Night didn't provide any additional endings for Shadow over Freddy's, it led to a bit of a teaser for Porkchop's Horror Show, another game by Phisnom at the time. Regardless, after so long of playing this game, it was nice to revisit this and go through this interpretation of William Afton's life story. A kid who accidentally stumbled upon the concept of eternal life through possession, a concept that would remain latched onto him for his entire life. Trying to replicate what happened with his pet, he would sacrifice his own father before moving on and sacrificing the children that was supposed to find joy in his restaurant. Clinging on to life in the fire that would take place inside of the Fazbear horror attraction, the puppet finds him and gives him one last opportunity to repent in the events of this game. All he had to do was show one shred of humanity that would maybe allow him a chance to move on. Whether he actually takes this chance to prove his humanity is up to you, of course, throughout the course of the 5 nights. You know, in a way, it is a little saddening if you do get the good ending, because when you think about it, the puppet mentioned during the 4th story about her own death, right? She says that if William had even a shred of humanity, you know, in the end, maybe she could have survived. Yet we know that never happened, right? She never got to live. And now she's here giving him a chance to prove once again whether they have that humanity or not. And it's like, if they manage to prove that they have that shred of humanity all at this point, after everything they've done, and not when he was in the middle of, or, you know, he was about to take another life. It's, I don't know, it's kind of sad in a way. It's kind of tragic. It's like, even when you get the good ending, it's like, it doesn't feel good from even the player's perspective, because it's like, you're the bad guy, right? That's what's so interesting about this game, is that, you know, it's all from the perspective of the villain in this case. And yeah, obviously you're trying to escape, you're trying to survive as the villain, but of course if you just go about that the normal way, you get punished. But if you do, you know, a little bit extra, you get some sort of repentance, or not forgiveness per se, but you get to kind of like move on in a way, which is such a weird aspect, to think that William can be responsible for them moving on. It's such a weird idea, but it's interesting that they kind of suggest that as like a possibility within this interpretation. Looking back on it though, I don't think I appreciated this game enough when I first played it. The visual storytelling of William's life through these detailed drawings and the writing overall with the stories, right? To the eeriness and overly frightening nature of the game, you know, wandering through this dark establishment where you have to keep an ear out, keep an eye out for whatever may be lurking. It was something that I was like constantly aware of. Like, I was worried to even move like area by area because I would always like look around, do double takes sometimes, and it's like, I hope I don't get jump scared. Sometimes I literally like had to like clench in order to like move from area to area because I was worried I was gonna get jump scared out of nowhere. And also from a story aspect, something I didn't really appreciate enough, right, is what I just mentioned, the puppet's role in ironically trying to save you despite what you did to her. It's such a interesting idea, right? We literally saw, you know, another, you know, fan game like kind of story, right, Locked at Freddy'S, where the puppet obviously is trying to, you know, once they're freed, they get revenge against Afton. But in this story, it's completely different, right? Where even though the puppet doesn't have to, the puppet chooses to give William a chance to prove that he has some shred of humanity left, as he's being chased by the ghosts of his victims. You know, the puppet is still trying to find the good in him, which is tragic. Overall, it all culminated in a unique and fun / terrifying experience. Now, one thing that I didn't really address regarding the puppet was the fact that she said that her act of saving William was more so a formality, and that if it was up to her, she would have let William to fend for himself, right? Which I found kind of interesting because on one hand, it seems like, yeah, she's trying to find some sort of redemption for William, but not out of her own desire, right? I mean, to some extent, I thought that might have been the case, but looking back at it, I'm not sure if it's something that she has to do in order for her to be able to move on as well, or if maybe this is some sort of... I mean, I guess like my main question is what's making her do this, right? She makes it seem as though it's not by her choice alone. This is something that she kind of has to do. So I guess my only question is what exactly is making her do this? What's making her try and find that kind of redemption in William, even if it's just a small sliver of it? But of course, with all that said, I hope you did enjoy. If you did, leave a like, comment, let me know what you enjoyed from the video and what you want to see from me. The game will be in the description below as always. Overall, goes without saying, great job to Phisnom, and with that said, I'll see you in another video. Take care.